So, following the previous presentation from Sebastian Hallensleben and also Patrick Besombe, you already got an idea about standardization and standardization organizations. Nevertheless, let me shortly introduce DIN as the German standardization organization. DIN is a neutral platform for standardization in Germany and worldwide. We are privately organized and financed, and we are looking back to almost 100 years or more than 100 years of standardization work, as we are established in 1917. And since the mid of the 70s, last century, we have a public-private partnership with the German government that designates us as the German representative standardization organization in Europe and on international level. Almost 3,500 DIN members sent nearly 60,000 experts that working on the details in the standards. And finally, the DIN standards comes to 35,000 standards all in one that have been worked on in 69 committees. That's a lot of numbers, but of course, those standards are the backbone for the trust that customers get in products and services. That's why standards play also a very important role when it comes to AI systems and projects in terms of AI. I think it doesn't. This thought about trustworthiness and trust in products and processes is also reflected in the AI standardization roadmap, which emerged from the German government's AI strategy. The first edition of this roadmap has been published at the end of 2020, and it has three main goals. First of all, describing the AI standardization environment, which is mainly the basis for identifying standardization needs, especially with regard to the implementation of the EU AI Act. And the most important part of the first edition of the standardization roadmap has been the recommendations for actions that has been taken by the working groups that are involved in those roadmap. Nearly 300 experts worked on the document, and one of the main recommendations out of the standardization roadmap has been made by the working group Quality, Conformity Assessment and Certification, which is that it is really needed to have a testing framework that guarantees comparability of testing and also that defines criteria that operationalize trustworthiness requirements and represent AI-specific challenges. This has been the basis for the project Zertifizierte KI, which is an AI lighthouse project funded by the government of North Rhine-Westphalia, especially by the Ministry of Economics, Industry, Climate Protection and Energy is the new name since the last Wahl. So 6 core partners and more than 25 associated partners from various industries are working on development criteria and test methods for AI systems. Those testable standards might be the basis for a certification or a conformity assessment of AI systems in order to promote acceptance of and trust in AI systems and applications. Yeah, I have to scroll down, that's why. It's a bit...
I was trying to put it full screen, but...
No, it doesn't work. Don't worry. I just scroll down. During the last months, one of the main focuses of the project has been to establish a kind of a little wider ecosystem of the project that relies on user groups in specifically, and these groups aim to contribute to standardization activities. by discussing project results on a broad group of project external stakeholders, and in order to identify standardization needs and potentials. The first user group that has been established was the group focused on the topic Trustworthy Cloud-Based AI Services. The aim of this group is mainly to develop and discuss testing criteria, testing methods, and to identify tools for a trustworthy AI in the cloud and edge supply chain. Thinking about standardization in this group mainly is the idea to contribute to the horizontal standards in the context of the EU AI Act. A second group that is a bit smaller because it's focused more on a scientific approach is the user group on transparency and neural networks. The aim is to identify needs and approaches as well from a user as well and a scientific perspective to systematically understand neural networks function and to check for vulnerabilities. Both user groups had in common that they are trying to transfer results of the project into standardization activities. The transfer of the relevant results, especially from the user group, but also results from the project as well, is one of the main objectives of Zertifizierte KI. Of course, there is a wide AI ecosystem already in place, which is also visible in terms of standardization. The project nevertheless seeks to coordinate and orchestrate its activities in consideration of current standardization activities, as Mr. Besombe already mentioned, and to connect with relevant technical committees and as well as to consider regulatory requirements such as the proposed AI Act. That's why the project fosters an intensive exchange with the National Joint Working Committee on AI in Germany, which mirrors, of course, the European and international standardization projects and activities of CEN, CENELEC, and ISO IEC. And yeah, one of the first project outcomes is the establishment of the working group called AI Quality and Test Methods within those joint working committee that has the aim that to deal with the topics which are addressed in the project Zertifizierte KI and which are not yet dealt with on national, European or international standardization level and which do not conflict with them. Additional to those mentioned links to the normative standardization, as we call it, there are also further standardization activities on the pre-normative level. The main difference between normative and pre-normative is full consensus, which is needed on the normative level, for example, at CEN or ISO, as well as on the national committee. That's why it takes a lot of time to get a consensus. And the pre-normative standardization activities doesn't need that full consensus. That's why they are a bit faster than the normative ones. And that's why that's a good starting point for innovative topics and for results coming out of research projects to be transferred into the normative standardization. All activities have in common that we want to standardize test methods and quality tools in order to enhance the trustworthiness of AI systems. Thus, starting from a national level, as Zertifizierte KI, we're trying to get in contact with the European and international level as well to transfer our results into those standardization activities as well. So, Now I want to have a closer look to the real or first standardization activities taking place within the project right now. I already mentioned the working group on AI quality and test methods. The elaboration of the Dean technical specification titled Artificial Intelligence, Quality Requirements and Processes, Full Life Cycle Risk Scheme for AI Systems started in spring this year. And it's the first standardization activity of zertifizierte KI. The objective of this group of stakeholders is to provide an AI risk scheme that covers risk along the entire life cycle of artificial intelligence and systems that include machine learning components as well. It distinguishes between 8 AI risk categories, for example, reliability, fairness, transparency, and so on, and assigns corresponding sources of risk to each category. Of course, the mentioned ISO standards on AI risk management are also considered. The completed document is intended to serve as a basis for users to identify the AI risks present in a given AI system and analyze them, thereby supporting the risk management process within an organization. The publication of this document is intended to be the spring next year. The second standardization activity started in summer this year. It's the Dean specification. As I already mentioned, Dean specification is the pre-normative activity. It's on artificial intelligence explainability. It's a part 3 of a series. So as you can guess, there are 2 other parts as well. But they have been written previous to the start of the zertifizierte KI project. So it's the both standards are on robustness and quality meta model. So explainability will be the 3rd part of this series. With the increasing use of artificial intelligence in seemingly all areas of industrial technology and in many products of the daily life, AI users are faced with the challenge of understanding how certain statements were developed. It is impossible to fully assess the trustworthiness of an AI model without understanding how and why it makes its decisions and whether those decisions are reliable and justified. Before deploying an AI model in practice, it is of great importance to understand the relevant decision-making processes, especially for high-risk AI systems, as poorly understood models can have a negative impact on economy or society and may conflict with regulatory requirements. The explainability of the AI models is therefore an important backbone of the quality control process. In this sense, the Dean specification aims to promote the explainability of AI models throughout their life cycle, because a better understanding of explainable AI supports organizations in embedding principle of trust and transparency in their AI-based applications. Currently, 33 members from 23 organizations, from science, from testing and audit representatives, but also from industry are working on this document that is intended to be published in May next year. So, and last but not least, our 3rd project, which is currently under development, but the business plan will be open for comments and expression of interest within the next week. So we hope we can publish it by mid of October. The planned Dean spec or Dean specification on uncertainty, quantification, and machine learning can be a basis for the development of ML uncertainty quantification to enable future ML applications. The user group that I already mentioned on transparency in neural networks also deals with these topics and provides further aspects to the discussion. The document intends to establish a general guidance and requirements for the development and use of methods for quantifying uncertainty in machine learning. The publication as a business plan, as I already mentioned, will be in October, and the document is intended to be publicated in summer next year. So if you are interested in joining those works, feel free to comment on the business plan. All of those documents, by the way, are developed in English, so you're able to contribute. To link up my initial comments on the standardization roadmap, on the first edition of the standardization roadmap, I would like to spend some words on the upcoming second edition of the AI standardization roadmap, which will be published end of this year. The goals of the second edition are similar to the ones I already mentioned for the first edition. This time, more than 500 experts have been working on the roadmap, and they has been organized in working groups similar to the procedures already in place for the first edition. Some of the working groups focusing on horizontal aspects on AI, and some of them focusing on vertical aspects. For the project Zertifizierte KI, mainly the working group testing and certification is the important one. First of all, those working groups are focused on the clarification of terms, sorry. That meaning terminology is important. And furthermore, they are trying to consider existing approaches and results in order to discuss the motivation and operationalization of AI systems. Security and safety are really important topics that have been discussed in a separated group. Of course, all those recommendations coming out of this working group are really important for the project Zertifizierte KI and will be considered within the next months and years. So, to sum up my presentation in a short way, as well, I think it is important to consider all the activities I already mentioned, as well as the ones Mr. Besombe and Sebastian Hallensleben mentioned as well. I think it's to enable trustworthy AI standards are really needed, as they are the basis for conformity assessment. Currently, various activities are ongoing to meet this challenge. Zertifizierte KI also contributes to standards development in the field of trustworthy AI. Nevertheless, we are completely aware that there is a huge AI ecosystem, and speaking of standardization, we make sure that all these activities fitting perfectly in another. So that is especially for projects on the international, European, as well as on the national level. That's why we are trying to provide possibilities to get in contact and to discuss with each other and to ensure broad contribution from all relevant stakeholders, especially with the stakeholders from the standardization world. And therefore, I would like to invite you to get in touch with us, and maybe if you have to ask any additional question. Thank you.